The cold December air wrapped around me like an old familiar blanket as I stepped out of the taxi that evening, my breath forming small clouds that disappeared into the darkness. The street was quiet, almost reverent, with only the distant sound of carols drifting from somewhere down the block. I could smell wood smoke mingling with the crisp scent of pine, and somewhere nearby, someone was baking bread, the yeast and warmth cutting through the winter chill. My fingers were numb despite my gloves, and I fumbled with the latch on the garden gate, the metal cold and slightly damp under my touch. It had been 3 years since I last stood at this gate. 3 years since I had walked up this path to my grandmother's house. 3 years of excuses, of being too busy, of promising next time, always next time. But there would be no more next times if I didn't make this one count. The house stood before me, smaller than I remembered, its white paint slightly faded but still proud, still welcoming. Golden light spilled from every window, warm and inviting, and I could see shadows moving inside, people I loved, people I had missed more than I had allowed myself to admit. I pushed the gate open and it creaked, that same familiar sound that had greeted me every Christmas of my childhood. The path was lined with small luminarias, paper bags weighted with sand and holding flickering candles, their flames dancing in the gentle breeze. My grandmother had always insisted on these, said they were to light the way for the Christ child, to welcome him into our home. The light they cast was soft and golden, making the frost on the grass sparkle like scattered diamonds. As I walked toward the front door, memories flooded back with each step. I remembered running down this path as a child, my shoes slapping against the stones, racing my cousins to see who could reach the door first. I remembered my grandfather standing right there, by that oak tree, teaching me how to identify the constellations on clear winter nights. I remembered my mother, younger then, laughing as she chased me through the garden, threatening to tickle me until I couldn't breathe. The door opened before I could knock, and there she was. My grandmother. 87 years old and still standing straight as a pine, her silver hair pulled back in the same bun she had worn for as long as I could remember. Her eyes, those bright blue eyes that seemed to see straight through to your soul, lit up when she saw me. She didn't say anything at first, just opened her arms, and I fell into them like I was 7 years old again. She smelled of cinnamon and vanilla, of butter and sugar, of all the Christmases I had ever known. Her embrace was warm and strong, and I felt something inside me that had been tightly wound for years begin to loosen. She patted my back, her hand moving in slow circles, the way she used to when I was small and had scraped my knee or lost a toy. "Welcome home, my darling," she whispered, her voice soft and slightly hoarse with age. "Welcome home." I felt tears prick at my eyes and I blinked them back, not wanting to cry, not yet, not when I had just arrived. But she felt me tense and she pulled back, holding me at arm's length, steadying my face with those knowing eyes. "It's all right to cry," she said, her thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped despite my efforts. "Tears are just love that has nowhere else to go." She took my hand, her skin paper thin and warm, and led me inside. The heat of the house enveloped me immediately, along with a symphony of smells that made my stomach growl and my heart ache with nostalgia. Turkey roasting, rich and savory. Sweet potatoes baking with brown sugar and butter. Fresh bread cooling on racks. Mulled wine simmering on the stove with cinnamon sticks and cloves and orange peels. And underneath it all, the clean scent of pine from the Christmas tree. The hallway was exactly as I remembered it. The same wooden floors, polished to a soft gleam. The same photographs lining the walls, generations of family gatherings, weddings, christenings, Christmases past. I paused at one, a picture of me at age 5, sitting on my grandfather's lap, both of us laughing at something long forgotten. He had been gone for 10 years now, but looking at that photograph, I could almost hear his laugh, deep and rumbling, could almost feel his scratchy beard against my cheek when he kissed me good night. "Come, come," my grandmother urged, tugging gently at my hand. "Everyone is waiting." We walked down the hallway toward the sound of voices, laughter, the clink of glasses. My heart was beating faster now, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I had stayed away so long. Would they be angry? Would they understand? The living room opened before us, and for a moment I just stood in the doorway, taking it all in. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, a noble fir that nearly touched the ceiling, decorated with ornaments I recognized from my childhood. There was the angel I had made in 2nd grade, slightly lopsided, her halo bent. There was the glass ball my parents had bought on their honeymoon in Prague. There were the wooden soldiers my grandfather had carved, each one unique, each one a tiny work of art. The lights on the tree were the old-fashioned kind, large colored bulbs that cast a warm, nostalgic glow. The room was full of people, my family. My mother sat on the sofa, her hair now streaked with gray but her smile as bright as ever. My father stood by the fireplace, older, a little rounder, but still with that gentle strength that had always made me feel safe. My brother was there with his wife and their 2 children, a boy of 6 and a girl of 4, both of whom I had only seen in photographs. My aunt and uncle, my cousins, faces I had known all my life, faces I had missed without fully realizing how much. The conversation stopped when they saw me. For a heartbeat, there was silence, and in that silence I heard the crackle of the fire, the soft hum of Christmas music playing somewhere, the tick of the old grandfather clock in the corner. Then my mother stood, her hand going to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled me into her arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. I buried my face in her shoulder and finally let myself cry, really cry, all the loneliness and regret and longing of the past 3 years pouring out of me. "My baby," she whispered, rocking me gently. "My baby is home." Then everyone was around us, arms reaching out, hands patting my back, my shoulders, my head. My father's strong embrace, my brother's playful punch to my arm, my aunt's kiss on my cheek. The children stared at me with wide, curious eyes, not quite sure who this stranger was who had made all the adults cry. "I'm your Aunt Sarah," I told them, kneeling down to their level. "I've been away for a while, but I'm here now." The little girl, Emma, reached out and touched my face with one small finger, as if to make sure I was real. "You're pretty," she said solemnly. "Do you like cookies?" "I love cookies," I assured her, and she smiled, satisfied, and took my hand. "Come see the tree," she commanded, and I let her lead me across the room, her small hand warm and sticky in mine, probably from the cookies she had mentioned. The next hour passed in a blur of catching up, of stories shared and laughter that felt like medicine. My brother told me about his job, about the house they had just bought, about how his son had lost his first tooth and put it under his pillow for the tooth fairy. My cousin Maria talked about her new business, a small bakery that was finally starting to turn a profit. My uncle shared his terrible jokes, the same ones he had been telling for 30 years, and we all groaned and laughed in equal measure. I sat on the floor with the children, helping them build a tower out of wooden blocks, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Belonging. Home. My grandmother moved through the room like a conductor leading an orchestra, making sure everyone had a drink, that the fire was fed, that the music was at just the right volume. She caught my eye once and winked, and I knew she understood. She had always understood. "Dinner will be ready in 30 minutes, she announced. "Sarah, darling, would you help me in the kitchen?" I followed her down the hallway to the kitchen, a large, warm room that had always been the heart of the house. The counters were covered with food in various stages of preparation. The turkey sat on the counter, golden brown and glistening, resting before carving. Bowls of mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, cranberry sauce, stuffing, sweet potato casserole, all waiting to be brought to the table. My grandmother handed me an apron, the same one I had worn as a teenager when I helped her cook. It was faded now, the pattern of holly and berries barely visible, but it still smelled faintly of flour and vanilla. "I need you to make the gravy," she said. "You always made the best gravy." I stared at her. "Grandma, I haven't made gravy in years. I'll probably ruin it." She smiled and patted my cheek. "You won't ruin it. It's like riding a bicycle. Your hands remember even if your mind doesn't." She was right. As soon as I started, measuring the drippings, adding flour, whisking until it was smooth, the movements came back to me. I had stood at this stove countless times, learning from her, absorbing not just recipes but wisdom, not just techniques but love. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the bubble of the gravy, the clink of spoons against bowls, the distant laughter from the living room. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "I'm glad you came home, Sarah." "I'm sorry it took so long," I said, my throat tight. "I'm sorry I stayed away." She was quiet for a moment, stirring the pot of mulled wine, the steam rising around her face. "Why did you stay away, darling? We missed you so much." I didn't know how to answer at first. How could I explain the complicated tangle of reasons? The job that had consumed me, the relationship that had ended badly, the shame I felt at not being where I thought I should be in life, the fear that everyone would judge me, would be disappointed in me. "I was afraid," I finally said. "Afraid that I had failed. Afraid that I wasn't the person you all thought I was. Afraid that if I came back, you would see that I was just lost." My grandmother set down her spoon and turned to me, taking both my hands in hers. "Oh, my darling girl," she said, her eyes shining with tears. "We are all lost sometimes. That's what family is for. To help us find our way back." A tear rolled down my cheek and she wiped it away with her thumb, just as she had at the door. "You are exactly who we think you are," she continued. "You are kind and smart and brave. You are our Sarah. And we love you, not for what you achieve or where you are in life, but simply because you are you. Because you are ours." I hugged her then, this tiny woman who had always been a giant in my life, and I felt something break open inside me, something hard and painful that I had been carrying for too long. The tears came freely now, and she held me, patting my back, humming softly, the same lullaby she had hummed when I was a baby. When I finally pulled back, she smiled and handed me a tissue. "Now," she said briskly, "wipe your eyes and finish that gravy. We have a feast to serve." We carried the food to the dining room, making trip after trip, our arms full of steaming dishes. The dining table was a beautiful sight, covered with my grandmother's best tablecloth, the white linen embroidered with red poinsettias. The china was the good set, the one that only came out for Christmas and Easter, delicate plates with gold trim. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls. In the center of the table sat a centerpiece my grandmother had made, pine boughs and holly and red candles, the flames flickering gently. Everyone gathered around the table, finding their places, the children bouncing with excitement. My grandmother stood at the head of the table, my grandfather's old place, and raised her glass. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "Before we eat," she said, "I want to say something. This year has been hard for many of us. We have faced challenges and losses and disappointments. But tonight, we are together. Tonight, we are reminded of what truly matters. Not the presents under the tree, not the food on this table, as wonderful as it is, but this. Us. Family. Love." She looked around the table, her gaze resting on each face, and when her eyes met mine, I saw such love there that I had to look away, overwhelmed. "I am grateful," she continued, her voice wavering slightly, "for every single person in this room. For the laughter you bring, for the love you share, for the memories we make together. I am grateful that we have one more Christmas together, one more chance to tell each other what we mean to each other." She raised her glass higher. "To family," she said. "To love. To Christmas." "To family," we all echoed, raising our glasses. "To love. To Christmas." The sound of crystal clinking filled the room, a delicate, musical sound, and then we sat, and the feast began. My father carved the turkey with practiced skill, the knife sliding through the tender meat, the juices running clear. Bowls were passed from hand to hand, each person taking what they wanted, exclaiming over the food, complimenting the cooks. The children needed help, and we cut their meat into small pieces, buttered their rolls, poured their milk. The first bite of turkey was heaven, moist and flavorful, seasoned perfectly with herbs and butter. The mashed potatoes were creamy and rich, the gravy, my gravy, smooth and savory. The sweet potatoes were sweet and spicy at once, topped with pecans that crunched between my teeth. The green beans were crisp and fresh, the almonds adding a nutty depth. The cranberry sauce was tart and sweet, cutting through the richness of the other dishes. But more than the food, it was the conversation, the laughter, the stories that fed my soul. My uncle told the story of the Christmas when my father was 10 and had tried to stay awake to catch Santa Claus, only to fall asleep in the fireplace and wake up covered in soot. My mother shared the memory of the year I had insisted on making all the Christmas cards myself and had used so much glitter that they were still finding it in the carpet months later. My brother reminded me of the time we had built a snowman so large it took 3 days to melt, and how we had given it a carrot nose so big that a rabbit had come and eaten it in the night. The children listened with wide eyes, amazed by these glimpses into a past they had never known, a time when their parents and aunts and uncles had been children too. Little Emma tugged on my sleeve. "Tell me a story about when you were little," she demanded. I thought for a moment, then smiled. When I was about your age, I told her, I believed that reindeer could really fly. And one Christmas Eve, I was absolutely convinced I heard them on the roof. I ran to the window and I was sure I saw something moving in the sky, something with antlers and a red nose. "Did you really see them?" she asked, her voice hushed with wonder. "I saw something," I said. "Maybe it was reindeer. Maybe it was just the shadows of clouds moving across the moon. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. Because the magic of Christmas isn't about whether reindeer can fly or whether there's really a man in a red suit who delivers presents. The magic is about believing in something bigger than yourself. About hope and wonder and love." She thought about this seriously, her small face scrunched in concentration. "I believe in magic," she announced finally. "And I believe in reindeer." "Then that's all that matters," I told her, and she smiled, satisfied. As the meal went on, I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in years. The wine helped, warm and spiced, but it was more than that. It was the feeling of being surrounded by people who knew me, really knew me, and loved me anyway. It was the sound of my nephew's giggle when my brother made a silly face. It was the way my mother kept reaching over to squeeze my hand, as if to reassure herself I was really there. It was my grandmother's smile every time she looked around the table, a smile of pure contentment. We ate until we couldn't eat anymore, and then we ate a little more, because how could you resist just one more bite of stuffing, just one more spoonful of sweet potatoes? The children were the first to finish, too excited to sit still for long, and they were excused to go play, their laughter echoing from the living room. Finally, when every plate was empty and every stomach was full, we began to clear the table. It was a group effort, everyone carrying dishes to the kitchen, scraping plates, wrapping leftovers. My grandmother tried to shoo us away, insisting she would clean up, but we wouldn't hear of it. "You cooked," my mother said firmly. "We clean. That's the rule." In the kitchen, we worked together, washing and drying and putting away, talking and laughing, stealing bites of leftover turkey. My brother and I got into a playful argument about whose turn it was to dry, which ended with him flicking water at me and me threatening to put soap in his hair like I used to when we were kids. "You two never change," my mother said, but she was smiling, clearly happy to see us acting like siblings again instead of the polite strangers we had become over the years of separation. When the kitchen was clean, we returned to the living room, where my grandmother had laid out dessert on the coffee table. There were cookies of every kind, sugar cookies shaped like stars and trees and angels, gingerbread men with raisin eyes and icing smiles, chocolate chip cookies still warm from the oven, delicate butter cookies dusted with powdered sugar. There were brownies, rich and fudgy, and lemon bars, tart and sweet. And in the center of it all, my grandmother's famous apple pie, the crust golden and flaky, the filling bubbling with cinnamon and sugar. I couldn't possibly eat another bite, my aunt declared, and then immediately reached for a gingerbread man. We settled into the comfortable furniture, the fire crackling in the fireplace, the Christmas tree lights twinkling. Someone had put on a record of Christmas carols, the old vinyl kind that popped and hissed between songs, and the familiar melodies filled the room. Silent Night. Oh Holy Night. The First Noel. My nephew climbed into my lap, his small body warm and heavy, smelling of cookies and milk. He yawned, his eyes drooping, fighting sleep because he didn't want to miss anything. "Tell me about when my daddy was little," he murmured, his head resting against my chest. I looked over at my brother, who grinned and shrugged. "Your daddy," I said softly, "was the bravest kid I knew. One time, when I was scared of the dark, he stayed up with me all night, telling me stories and making shadow puppets on the wall until I fell asleep. He always protected me, always made me feel safe." My nephew smiled, his eyes closing. "My daddy is brave," he agreed, his voice slurred with sleep. Within minutes, he was asleep, his breathing deep and even, his small hand curled around my finger. I sat very still, not wanting to wake him, feeling the weight of him, the trust, the innocence. My brother caught my eye and mouthed "Thank you," and I nodded, understanding passing between us without words. My grandmother sat in her favorite chair, the one that had been my grandfather's, her hands folded in her lap, watching us all with that serene smile. The firelight played across her face, highlighting the lines and wrinkles that told the story of her life, each one earned through laughter or tears or years of smiling. "Grandma," my cousin Maria said suddenly, "tell us about your first Christmas with Grandpa." My grandmother's eyes grew distant, looking back across the decades. "Oh," she said softly, "that was a magical Christmas. We had only been married 6 months, and we were so poor. We were living in a tiny apartment, barely big enough for the two of us, and we didn't have money for presents or a fancy dinner." She paused, her fingers touching the wedding ring she still wore, turning it slowly. "Your grandfather worked extra shifts for weeks," she continued, "saving every penny he could. And on Christmas Eve, he came home with a small tree, barely 3 feet tall, that someone had been throwing away. He also brought a chicken, not a turkey, just a small chicken, and a bag of potatoes." She smiled, lost in the memory. "We decorated that little tree with paper chains I made from newspaper and popcorn we strung on thread. We cooked that chicken and those potatoes, and we ate by candlelight because it was romantic and also because it saved on the electric bill. And after dinner, he gave me a present." She reached up and touched her neck, where a simple gold locket hung. "This locket," she said. "He had saved for months to buy it. When I opened it, there was a picture of him inside, and a tiny piece of paper with 3 words written on it. Forever and always." Her voice broke slightly and she cleared her throat. "I gave him a present too. A scarf I had knitted, blue like his eyes. It wasn't much, but he wore it every day that winter. He said it was the best present he had ever received because I had made it with my own hands, with love in every stitch." She looked around at all of us, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "That was the best Christmas of my life," she said. "Not because of what we had, but because of what we were. Together. In love. Full of hope for the future." The room was silent except for the crackle of the fire and the soft music. We were all thinking about my grandfather, missing him, wishing he could be here with us. But in a way, he was here. In the stories we told, in the traditions we kept, in the love that filled this house. "I miss him," I said quietly, the words escaping before I could stop them. "We all do," my grandmother said. "Every single day. But you know what he would say if he were here? He would say stop being sad and eat more pie. He would say that life is for the living, and the best way to honor those we've lost is to love those we still have." She stood, moving to the piano in the corner, an old upright that had been in the family for generations. She sat down on the bench and her fingers found the keys, playing the opening notes of "O Come All Ye Faithful." Her voice, still strong and clear despite her age, began to sing, and one by one, we joined in. We sang all the old carols, our voices blending and harmonizing, sometimes hitting the wrong notes and laughing, sometimes so moved by the words that we had to stop and collect ourselves. The children woke up and joined in, singing the words they knew and humming the ones they didn't. We sang "Joy to the World" and "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" and "Away in a Manger." When we finished, my grandmother closed the piano and turned to face us. "There's one more tradition we need to keep," she said. "The Christmas wishes. This was something we had done every year when I was growing up. Each person would share one wish for the coming year, not for themselves, but for someone else in the family. It was a way of showing love, of thinking about others, of speaking blessings over each other. My father went first. "I wish for my son and his family to find the perfect house," he said, looking at my brother. "A place where your children can grow and play and make memories." My brother's eyes grew misty and he nodded, mouthing "Thank you." My mother went next. "I wish for my daughter," she said, looking at me, "to know how deeply she is loved, and to never doubt that she has a home here, always. I felt tears spill down my cheeks and I didn't bother to wipe them away. One by one, we went around the room, each person sharing a wish. My brother wished for me to find happiness and peace. My aunt wished for my cousin's business to thrive. My uncle wished for my grandmother to have health and strength for many more years. The children wished for silly things, for toys and candy and snow, and we smiled at their innocence. When it was my turn, I looked around at all these faces, these people who had welcomed me back without judgment, who had loved me even when I had stayed away, who had kept a place for me at their table and in their hearts. I wish, I said, my voice shaking, for all of you to know how much you mean to me. I wish I could give back even a fraction of what you've given me tonight. You've reminded me of who I am, of where I come from, of what really matters. You've given me the greatest gift I could ever receive. You've given me home. My grandmother was the last to speak. She stood, her small frame somehow commanding, and looked at each of us in turn. I wish, she said, for all of you to remember this night. To remember that no matter what happens, no matter how far apart we may be, we are family. We are bound by blood and by love, and nothing can break that bond. I wish for you to carry this love with you, to let it guide you, to let it comfort you when times are hard. And I wish for you to come back, again and again, to this table, to this house, to each other. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Because I won't be here forever, my darlings. None of us will. But love is forever. Love is what remains when everything else is gone. We were all crying now, even my father, who never cried, even my uncle, who always joked to hide his emotions. We came together in the center of the room, all of us, arms around each other, holding tight, a tangle of family and love and tears and laughter. We stayed like that for a long time, drawing strength from each other, giving comfort, receiving it. The children were in the middle, protected and surrounded, and I thought about how this was what family was supposed to be. A shelter. A safe place. A circle of love that nothing could break. Eventually, we pulled apart, wiping our eyes, laughing at ourselves for being so emotional. My grandmother insisted we have more dessert, because sugar makes everything better, and we obliged, even though we were all still full from dinner. The evening wore on, the fire burning low, the candles guttering. The children fell asleep on the couch, curled up together like puppies. The adults talked in low voices, not wanting to wake them, sharing stories and memories, making plans for the future. My mother told me about the quilt she was making, a family tree quilt with a square for each member of the family. My father talked about his plans to retire next year, to finally have time to travel and fish and work in his garden. My brother shared his dreams for his children, the things he wanted to teach them, the values he wanted to instill. I found myself talking too, really talking, in a way I hadn't in years. I told them about my job, about the stress and the long hours and the feeling that I was running on a treadmill, always moving but never getting anywhere. I told them about the loneliness of living in a big city where I knew hundreds of people but had no real friends. I told them about the fear that had kept me away, the shame, the feeling that I had somehow failed. And they listened. Really listened. Not judging, not offering advice unless I asked for it, just being there, being present, letting me unburden myself. When I finished, my father spoke. "Sarah," he said, "success isn't about how much money you make or what title you have or where you live. Success is about being true to yourself, about living a life that matters, about loving and being loved. And by that measure, You are already successful. My mother nodded. You are exactly where you need to be, she said. Right here, right now, with us. Everything else will work itself out. I wanted to believe them. And sitting there, in that warm room, surrounded by love, I found that I could. I could believe that maybe I wasn't as lost as I thought. Maybe I was just finding a different path. Maybe coming home wasn't a step backward but a step forward, a return to the foundation so I could build something new. Around midnight, people began to gather their things, preparing to leave. The children were carried to cars, still sleeping, wrapped in coats and blankets. There were hugs and kisses, promises to get together soon, not to wait another 3 years. My brother hugged me tight. I'm glad you're back, he whispered. I missed my sister. I missed you too, I told him, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. When everyone else had gone, I helped my grandmother clean up the last of the dishes, put away the leftover desserts, bank the fire. We worked in comfortable silence, the house settling around us, creaking and sighing like an old friend. Stay tonight, she said as we finished. Your old room is ready. I always keep it ready, just in case. I nodded, too emotional to speak. We climbed the stairs together, her hand on the railing, moving slowly but steadily. At the top, she kissed my cheek. Sleep well, my darling, she said. And thank you for coming home. Thank you for never giving up on me, I replied. She smiled. Never, she said. Not ever. My old room was exactly as I had left it. The same bed with the patchwork quilt my grandmother had made. The same dresser with the mirror. The same bookshelf full of childhood favorites. The same window that looked out over the garden. I changed into the pajamas my grandmother had left on the bed, soft flannel that smelled of lavender and sunshine. I climbed under the quilt, the mattress familiar beneath me, the pillow soft under my head. Through the window, I could see stars, bright and clear in the cold December sky. I thought about the evening, about everything that had been said and shared. I thought about my grandmother's story of her first Christmas with my grandfather, about how they had so little but were so happy. I thought about the wishes we had spoken over each other, blessings and hopes and dreams. I thought about my mother's words, that I was exactly where I needed to be. And lying there, in that room where I had spent so many nights as a child, I felt something shift inside me. The fear and shame and loneliness that had weighed me down for so long began to lift, like fog burning off in the morning sun. I wasn't lost. I was found. I had been found the moment I walked through that gate, the moment my grandmother opened her arms, the moment my family welcomed me home. I fell asleep with tears on my cheeks, but they were good tears, healing tears. And I dreamed of Christmases past and Christmases future, of family gathered around a table, of love that endured through time and distance, of home. I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, sunlight streaming through the window, painting golden squares on the wooden floor. For a moment, I was disoriented, not sure where I was, and then memory flooded back and I smiled. I was home. I dressed quickly and went downstairs, following the sounds and smells to the kitchen. My grandmother stood at the stove, still in her robe, her hair in a long braid down her back. She turned when she heard me and smiled. "Good morning, darling," she said. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Grandma," I replied, kissing her cheek. She handed me a cup of coffee, made just the way I liked it, with cream and 2 sugars. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had eaten countless breakfasts as a child. We ate together, scrambled eggs and bacon and toast with homemade jam. We talked about small things, the weather, the birds at the feeder outside the window, the plans for the day. It was comfortable and easy, no pressure, no expectations, just two people who loved each other sharing a meal. After breakfast, I helped her wash the dishes, and then we moved to the living room. The tree looked even more beautiful in the daylight, the ornaments catching the sun, sending sparkles of light dancing across the walls. There were presents under the tree, wrapped in colorful paper and tied with ribbons. My grandmother handed me one, a small box wrapped in silver paper. "This is for you," she said. I opened it carefully, not wanting to tear the paper. Inside was a small wooden box, beautifully carved with a pattern of holly and berries. I opened the box and inside was a key, old and brass, with an ornate handle. "What is this?" I asked. "The key to this house," she said. "I want you to have it. I want you to know that you always have a place here, that you can come home any time, day or night, and the door will be open to you." I stared at the key, feeling its weight in my palm, understanding the significance of what she was giving me. It wasn't just a key. It was a promise. It was an assurance. It was love made tangible. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Thank you for everything." She patted my hand. "You are my granddaughter," she said simply. "You are my heart. There is nothing I wouldn't do for you." We sat together for a long time, watching the light change as the sun moved across the sky, not needing to talk, just being together. And I realized that this was what I had been missing, what I had been searching for in all the wrong places. Not success or achievement or validation from strangers. Just this. Connection. Belonging. Love. Later that afternoon, the family began to arrive again, bringing more food, more laughter, more love. We spent the day together, playing games, watching the children open their presents, eating leftovers that somehow tasted even better the second day. My nephew showed me his new toy truck, making engine noises as he drove it across the floor. My niece insisted I help her with a puzzle, her small fingers carefully placing each piece. My brother and I took a walk around the neighborhood, our breath-forming clouds in the cold air, talking about everything and nothing, rebuilding the bridge that distance had weakened. As evening approached and the light began to fade, we gathered once more around the table for a simple supper of soup and sandwiches. The conversation was easy, punctuated by laughter and the occasional argument about whose turn it was to tell a story. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, watching us all with that serene smile, and I realized something. She had been doing this for decades, gathering us together, feeding us, loving us, creating these moments that would become memories. She was the thread that held us all together, the center around which we orbited. And one day, she wouldn't be here anymore, and it would be up to us to keep the tradition alive, to gather the family, to tell the stories, to pass on the love. The thought made me sad, but it also filled me with determination. I would not stay away again. I would come home as often as I could. I would learn her recipes, memorize her stories, absorb her wisdom. I would make sure that when she was gone, her legacy would live on in all of us. As if she could read my thoughts, she caught my eye and winked, and I knew she understood. She had always understood. That night, as I prepared to leave, to return to my apartment in the city, my grandmother walked me to the door. She handed me a bag full of leftovers, enough food to last me a week, and a tin of cookies. "Come back soon," she said, hugging me tight. "Don't wait for Christmas." "I won't," I promised. "I'll come back next month. And the month after that. As often as I can." She cupped my face in her hands, her palms warm and soft. "I love you, my darling girl," she said. "More than you will ever know." "I love you too, Grandma," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for this Christmas. Thank you for reminding me of what matters." She smiled. "That's what Christmas is for," she said. "To remind us. To bring us home." I walked down the path, past the luminarias that were still burning, their flames dancing in the darkness. At the gate, I turned back to look at the house. My grandmother stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm light from inside, waving. I waved back, committing the image to memory, wanting to hold onto this moment forever. The taxi arrived and I climbed in, placing the bag of food and the tin of cookies on the seat beside me. As we pulled away, I looked back one more time. The house was glowing like a beacon in the darkness, a symbol of warmth and love and home. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key my grandmother had given me. I held it tight, feeling its weight, its promise. I would come back. I would always come back. Because this was where I belonged. This was my home. These were my people. And no matter how far I traveled or how long I stayed away, this love would always be here, waiting for me, welcoming me, holding me. The city lights appeared on the horizon, bright and cold, so different from the warm glow of my grandmother's house. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't lost. Because I knew where home was. I knew where love lived. And I knew that I could always find my way back. In the weeks that followed, I found myself thinking about that Christmas dinner constantly. The memories would come at unexpected times, triggered by a smell or a sound or a feeling. The scent of cinnamon would transport me back to my grandmother's kitchen. The sound of laughter would remind me of my family gathered around the table. The feeling of cold air on my face would take me back to that moment at the gate, looking up at the house, gathering my courage to go inside. I kept my promise. I went back the next month, and the month after that. Each visit was different but the same. Different conversations, different meals, different activities, but the same love, the same warmth, the same feeling of belonging. I started calling more often, not just my grandmother but my parents, my brother, my cousins. I sent cards and letters. I shared photos. I stayed connected, refusing to let distance create the gap it had before. My life in the city didn't change overnight. I still had the same job, the same apartment, the same daily routines. But something inside me had changed. I was no longer running from something. I was no longer afraid of being judged or found wanting. I knew who I was. I knew where I came from. I knew I was loved. I started making changes, small at first. I reached out to colleagues, turned work relationships into friendships. I joined a book club, started volunteering at a local shelter. I opened myself up to connection, to community, to the possibility of building a family of choice to complement the family of blood. And slowly, the loneliness that had been my constant companion began to fade. I still had hard days, days when I felt lost or overwhelmed or uncertain. But on those days, I would pull out the key my grandmother had given me, hold it in my hand, and remember. Remember the love. Remember the laughter. Remember that I was never truly alone. The next Christmas, I arrived at my grandmother's house a week early, offering to help with the preparations. We spent days together in the kitchen, baking cookies and pies, preparing dishes that could be frozen and reheated. She taught me her recipes, not just the ingredients and measurements, but the tricks and techniques she had learned over a lifetime of cooking. A pinch of salt brings out the sweetness, she told me as we made apple pie. Always use real butter, never margarine. The secret to good gravy is patience, don't rush it. Taste as you go, trust your instincts. But more than recipes, she taught me about life. About the importance of showing up, of being present, of making time for the people you love. About forgiveness, both of others and of yourself. About the courage it takes to be vulnerable, to admit when you're struggling, to ask for help. Life is hard, my darling, she said one afternoon as we rolled out cookie dough. It's full of disappointments and heartbreaks and losses. But it's also full of joy and beauty and love. The trick is to hold both truths at the same time, to acknowledge the pain but not let it overshadow the good. She dusted flour off her hands and looked at me, her blue eyes clear and bright. You've been through a hard time, she said. You felt lost and alone. But you found your way back. You came home. And that took courage. Never forget that. Never forget how strong you are. I hugged her then, this tiny woman who was a giant in my life, and I thanked her for never giving up on me, for always believing in me, for loving me unconditionally. That's what grandmothers do, she said, patting my back. We love. It's our superpower. Christmas Eve arrived, and once again the family gathered. The house was full of noise and laughter and love. The children were a year older, a little taller, a little more confident. My nephew had lost another tooth and was proudly showing everyone the gap in his smile. My niece had learned to read and insisted on reading the Christmas story from the Bible, stumbling over some of the words but determined to finish. We gathered around the table once more, and the sight of it filled me with such joy I thought my heart might burst. The same white tablecloth with red poinsettias. The same china with gold trim. The same crystal glasses catching the light. The same centerpiece of pine and holly and candles. And in the center of it all, the same faces I loved, older perhaps, a few more gray hairs, a few more wrinkles, but still my family, still my home. My grandmother stood to give the blessing, and we all fell silent, bowing our heads. But before she spoke, she looked around the table, her gaze resting on each face, and she smiled. Last year, she said, I stood here and I talked about gratitude, about family, about love. This year, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about coming home. She looked at me, and I felt tears prick at my eyes. Some of us, she continued, have to leave home to find ourselves. We have to go out into the world, make our own way, face our own challenges. And that's good. That's necessary. But the real courage, the real strength, is in coming back. In admitting that we need each other. In accepting love even when we feel we don't deserve it. She raised her glass. To Sarah, she said, who had the courage to come home. And to all of us, who have the wisdom to welcome her back with open arms. To Sarah, everyone echoed, raising their glasses, and I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They flowed freely down my cheeks, tears of gratitude and love and belonging. The meal was just as wonderful as the year before, maybe even more so because I had helped prepare it, because I knew the work and love that had gone into every dish. We ate and talked and laughed, and I soaked it all in, committing every moment to memory. After dinner, as we were clearing the table, my brother pulled me aside. "I have something to tell you," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. "We're having another baby. We found out last week." I hugged him tight, thrilled for him and his growing family. "That's wonderful," I said. "Congratulations. We want you to be the godmother," he said. "We want you to be part of this child's life, to be there for the important moments, to be family." I would be honored, I told him, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Later, as we sat around the living room, full and content, my grandmother announced that she had a surprise. She disappeared into her bedroom and returned carrying a large box, wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. "This is for all of us," she said, setting the box on the coffee table. "Open it together." We gathered around, curious, and my father carefully untied the string and removed the paper. Inside was a quilt, the most beautiful quilt I had ever seen. It was made up of hundreds of squares, each one different, each one telling a story. "I've been working on this for 5 years," my grandmother said softly. "Each square represents a memory, a moment in our family's history. There's a square from your grandfather's favorite shirt. A square from the dress I wore on our wedding day. A square from the blanket we brought your father home from the hospital in. A square from your mother's prom dress. A square from the curtains that hung in your childhood bedrooms." She pointed to different squares as she spoke, and we leaned in, recognizing fabrics, remembering moments. There was a square from my old Halloween costume, a witch's robe I had worn 3 years in a row. A square from my brother's baseball uniform. A square from the tablecloth we had used at family picnics. "This is our history," she said. "This is who we are. And I want you to have it, to keep it, to pass it down to your children and their children. So they know where they came from. So they know the love that built this family." We were all crying now, touching the quilt reverently, tracing the stitches, marveling at the work and love that had gone into it. It was more than a quilt. It was a legacy. It was a testament to the power of family, of memory, of love that endures. We spread the quilt out on the floor, and we all sat around it, touching it, sharing memories of the moments represented in each square. The children crawled across it, fascinated by the different textures and colors. And I thought about how this quilt would outlive all of us, how it would be here long after we were gone, telling our story, keeping our memory alive. That night, as I lay in my old bed, I thought about the past 2 years, about how much had changed since that first Christmas when I had come home. I had been so lost then, so afraid, so alone. But I had found my way back. I had let myself be loved. I had opened my heart to connection and community and family. And I realized that this was the real gift of Christmas. Not the presents or the food or the decorations, as wonderful as they were. The real gift was this: the reminder that we are not alone. That we are part of something bigger than ourselves. That we are loved, not for what we do or what we achieve, but simply for who we are. The years continued to pass, each one bringing changes. My brother and his wife had their 3rd child, a beautiful baby girl they named Grace. My cousin Maria's bakery expanded, and she opened a 2nd location. My parents retired and bought a small house by the lake, where they spent their days fishing and reading and enjoying the peace they had earned. And my grandmother, she kept going, year after year, still standing straight, still cooking, still gathering us together. She moved a little slower, her hands shook a little more, her memory sometimes faltered. But her love never wavered. Her commitment to family never diminished. I continued to visit regularly, and each visit was precious. We would sit together in her kitchen, drinking tea, talking about everything and nothing. She would tell me stories of her childhood, of her parents and grandparents, of a world that no longer existed except in memory. And I would listen, absorbing every word, knowing that one day these stories would be all I had left of her. She taught me to knit, and together we made scarves and hats for the homeless shelter. She taught me to garden, and we spent spring afternoons planting flowers and vegetables, our hands in the dirt, the sun warm on our backs. She taught me to see the beauty in small things, in a bird's song, in the first snowfall, in a child's laughter. Most importantly, she taught me to love without reservation, to give without expecting anything in return, to be present in each moment, to cherish the people in my life while I still had them. 5 years after that first Christmas when I came home, I met someone. His name was David, and he was kind and funny and patient. He listened when I talked, really listened. He made me laugh. He challenged me to be better. And slowly, carefully, I let myself fall in love. I brought him home to meet my family, nervous about what they would think. But my grandmother took one look at him and smiled. "This one is good," she whispered to me. "This one has a kind heart." She was right, of course. She was always right. David fit into our family as if he had always been there. He helped my father fix the fence. He played with the children. He listened to my uncle's terrible jokes and laughed at all the right moments. And he sat with my grandmother in the kitchen, learning her recipes, asking about her life, treating her with the respect and love she deserved. We were married the following spring, in my grandmother's garden, surrounded by family and friends and flowers. She stood beside me as I said my vows, her hand in mine, her eyes shining with tears of joy. And when the ceremony was over and everyone was celebrating, she pulled me aside. "I'm so happy for you, my darling," she said, cupping my face in her hands. "You deserve all the love in the world." "I couldn't have done this without you," I told her. "You taught me how to love. You showed me what family means. You saved me." She shook her head. "No, darling. You saved yourself. You had the courage to come home, to be vulnerable, to accept love. That was all you. But you were there," I insisted. "You kept the door open. You never gave up on me." She smiled. "That's what love does," she said. "It waits. It hopes. It believes. It never gives up." That Christmas, David and I hosted dinner at our new apartment. It was smaller than my grandmother's house, and we couldn't fit everyone around one table, so we set up a second table in the living room. But the food was just as good, the laughter just as loud, the love just as strong. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, in the place of honor, and she looked around at all of us, her family, her legacy, and she smiled. "This is perfect," she said. "Absolutely perfect." 2 years later, David and I had our first child, a son we named Thomas, after my grandfather. My grandmother held him for the first time in the hospital, this tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket, and she cried tears of pure joy. "Welcome to the family, little one," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "You are so loved. So very loved." She was 93 then, and I knew our time together was growing short. But she was determined to be part of Thomas's life, to know him, to love him. She came to visit often, bringing toys and books and her endless supply of cookies. She would sit in the rocking chair, holding him, singing the same lullabies she had sung to me, to my father, to generations of babies. Thomas's first Christmas was magical. He was 6 months old, just beginning to sit up, fascinated by everything. The lights on the tree captivated him, and he would stare at them for long minutes, his eyes wide with wonder. The wrapping paper delighted him more than the presents, and he spent the afternoon crinkling it, laughing at the sound. My grandmother sat on the floor with him, playing peek-a-boo, making silly faces, completely absorbed in this new little person. And watching them together, I felt a sense of continuity, of connection across generations. My grandmother had loved me this way. I was loving my son this way. And one day, if I was blessed, I would sit on the floor with my grandchildren, passing on the love that had been given to me. That night, after everyone had gone home and Thomas was asleep in his crib, David and I sat together on the couch, exhausted but happy. We talked about the day, about the joy of watching our son experience his first Christmas, about how lucky we were to have such a wonderful family. I never thought I could be this happy, I told him. There was a time when I felt so lost, so alone. And now I have all this. You, Thomas, my family. It feels like a dream. He pulled me close, kissing the top of my head. It's not a dream, he said. It's real. And you deserve every bit of it. I thought about that first Christmas when I had come home, about how afraid I had been, about how I had almost not come at all. And I thought about how different my life would be if I hadn't found the courage to walk through that gate, to let myself be loved, to come home. That one decision, that one moment of courage, had changed everything. It had brought me back to my family, had healed the wounds I had been carrying, had opened my heart to love. It had led me to David, to Thomas, to this life I was living now. And I realized that this was the power of love, of family, of home. It could heal. It could transform. It could save. The following spring, my grandmother fell. She was in her garden, planting tulip bulbs for the next year, when she lost her balance and went down. She broke her hip, and though the surgery went well, she never fully recovered. She came home from the hospital, but she was weaker, frailer, no longer able to live independently. We moved her into our guest room, and she became part of our daily life. She would sit in the kitchen while I cooked, offering advice and encouragement. She would hold Thomas while I did laundry or cleaned or worked. She would tell us stories, sharing her wisdom, her memories, her love. It wasn't always easy. There were hard days, days when she was in pain or confused or frustrated by her limitations. But there were also beautiful days, days filled with laughter and love and precious moments. She taught Thomas his first words, clapping with delight when he said Mama and Dada. She read him stories, her voice soft and soothing, even when she couldn't remember what she had read 5 minutes before. She sang to him, the same lullabies she had sung to me, her voice wavering but still sweet. And I took care of her, the way she had taken care of me. I helped her bathe and dress. I made sure she took her medicine. I sat with her when she couldn't sleep, holding her hand, talking softly, letting her know she wasn't alone. One night, as I was helping her into bed, she took my hand and looked at me with those clear blue eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for taking care of me. For letting me be here, with you and David and Thomas. For giving me this gift. You gave me so much more," I told her, my voice breaking. "You gave me everything." She smiled. "We gave each other everything," she said. "That's what love is. A circle. What you give comes back to you, multiplied. That Christmas, we knew it would be her last. She was 95, and though her spirit was still strong, her body was failing. We made it special, gathering the whole family at our house, bringing the celebration to her since she could no longer travel. The house was full to bursting, people everywhere, children running and playing, adults talking and laughing. We set up a hospital bed in the living room so my grandmother could be part of everything, and she held court from there, surrounded by the people she loved. We cooked all her favorite dishes, following the recipes she had taught us. We decorated the tree with the ornaments from her house, the ones that held so many memories. We sang the carols she loved, our voices blending in harmony. And when it came time for the Christmas wishes, my grandmother insisted on going first. She looked around at all of us, her eyes moving from face to face, and she smiled. "I wish," she said, her voice soft but clear, "for all of you to remember what I'm about to tell you. Life is short. It goes by in the blink of an eye. Don't waste it on things that don't matter. Don't hold grudges. Don't let pride keep you from the people you love. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because there is no perfect moment. There is only now." She paused, gathering her strength. "Love each other," she continued. "Forgive each other. Show up for each other. Be present. Be kind. Be grateful. And gather together, as often as you can, to share meals and stories and laughter. Because this right here, this is what life is about. This is what matters." She looked at me, and I saw such love in her eyes that I had to look away, overwhelmed. "Sarah," she said, "you came home when you were lost, and you found yourself. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to keep this family together. To gather them, to feed them, to love them. To be the thread that holds them all together. Can you do that for me?" I nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down my face. "I promise," I finally managed to say. "I promise." "Good girl," she said, patting my hand. "I knew I could count on you." We spent the rest of the evening together, all of us, making memories, taking photos, holding on to each moment as if we could stop time. The children climbed carefully onto my grandmother's bed, snuggling close, and she held them, kissing their heads, whispering blessings over them. As the evening wore on and people began to leave, each one came to say goodbye to my grandmother. They hugged her gently, told her they loved her, thanked her for everything she had given them. And she smiled at each one, touching their faces, speaking words of love and encouragement. When everyone else had gone and it was just David and me and Thomas, we sat with her in the quiet house. Thomas had fallen asleep in her arms, and she held him close, her eyes closed, a peaceful smile on her face. "This is heaven," she whispered. "Right here. Right now. This is heaven." She died 3 days later, peacefully, in her sleep. We were all there, gathered around her bed, holding her hands, telling her we loved her, giving her permission to go. And when she took her last breath, I felt something shift in the world, as if a light had gone out, as if the universe itself was mourning. The grief was overwhelming. It felt like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I had known this day was coming, had tried to prepare myself, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of a world without her in it. But even in the midst of grief, there was gratitude. Gratitude that I had come home that Christmas 10 years ago. Gratitude that I had spent those years with her, learning from her, loving her, being loved by her. Gratitude that she had known Thomas, had held him, had blessed him. gratitude that she had died surrounded by love, knowing she was cherished, knowing her legacy would live on. The funeral was beautiful. The church was packed with people whose lives she had touched, whose hearts she had changed. We sang her favorite hymns. We shared stories and memories. We laughed and cried and celebrated a life well lived. And afterward, we gathered at her house, the house that had been the center of our family for so many years. We ate the food people had brought, we looked through old photo albums, we told stories. And slowly, the grief began to transform into something else. Not happiness, not yet, but a kind of peace. An acceptance. An understanding that death is part of life, that endings are necessary for new beginnings. In the weeks and months that followed, I kept my promise to her. I gathered the family together, not just for holidays but for ordinary days. Sunday dinners. Birthday parties. Random Tuesday afternoons when we just wanted to see each other. I cooked her recipes, told her stories, passed on her wisdom. And slowly, I began to understand what she had meant when she said that love is a circle. The love she had given me, I was now giving to others. To Thomas. To David. To my parents and my brother and my cousins and their children. And that love was coming back to me, multiplied, in hugs and laughter and shared meals and precious moments. Thomas grew, and I told him about his great-grandmother, about her strength and her wisdom and her endless capacity for love. I showed him the quilt she had made, explaining the significance of each square. I taught him her recipes, letting him help me in the kitchen the way I had helped her. I made sure he knew where he came from, who his people were, what values we held dear. And when he was old enough to understand, I told him the story of the Christmas that changed my life. The Christmas when I came home, lost and afraid and alone, and found love and acceptance and belonging. The Christmas when I learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about showing up, being present, loving without reservation. Years passed. David and I had 2 more children, a daughter we named Grace, after my grandmother, and another son we named Michael. The house was full of noise and chaos and love. We hosted Christmas dinner every year, carrying on the tradition my grandmother had started, gathering the family, feeding them, loving them. And every Christmas Eve, before we ate, I would stand at the head of the table, in the place my grandmother had stood, and I would give thanks. For the food. For the family. For the love that bound us together. For the memories of those who were no longer with us but who lived on in our hearts. I would look around the table at all the faces, some old, some new, some I had known all my life, some I was just getting to know. And I would feel my grandmother's presence, as real as if she were standing beside me. I would hear her voice, soft and clear, reminding me of what mattered. Love. Family. Home. And I would raise my glass and make a toast. To family, I would say. To love. To Christmas. To the ones we've lost and the ones we still have. To the memories we've made and the ones we'll make. To coming home. To coming home, everyone would echo, raising their glasses, and the sound of crystal clinking would fill the room, a delicate, musical sound that spoke of tradition and continuity and love that endures. And as we ate and talked and laughed, as the children played and the adults shared stories, as the candles flickered and the fire crackled and the Christmas tree lights twinkled, I would feel a deep sense of contentment. A knowing that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. That I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. That I was living a life that mattered. Because this was what my grandmother had taught me. That life isn't about achievements or possessions or status. It's about love. It's about connection. It's about showing up for the people who matter, being present in their lives, creating moments that will become memories. It's about coming home, not just to a place, but to yourself. To who you really are. To what really matters. And every Christmas, as I looked around that table at the faces I loved, I would remember that cold December night when I stood at the gate, afraid and alone, gathering my courage to walk up that path. I would remember my grandmother opening the door, opening her arms, welcoming me home. I would remember the warmth and the love and the acceptance I found inside. And I would be grateful. So deeply, profoundly grateful. For that moment of courage. For that decision to come home. For everything that followed. Because that one Christmas dinner, that one evening of laughter and tears and love, had changed everything. It had healed wounds I didn't know I had. It had opened doors I thought were closed forever. It had shown me what was possible when you let yourself be vulnerable, when you accept love, when you come home. It had taught me that family is the greatest gift we can ever receive. That love is the most powerful force in the universe. That home is not a place but a feeling, a sense of belonging, a knowledge that you are cherished exactly as you are. And now, as I stood at the head of the table, surrounded by the people I loved, carrying on the traditions my grandmother had taught me, I understood. I understood why she had never given up on me. Why she had kept the door open. Why she had welcomed me back with such joy. Because this was her legacy. Not the house or the recipes or the quilt, as precious as those things were. Her legacy was this. The family she had built. The love she had nurtured. The traditions she had created. The values she had instilled. Her legacy was us. All of us. Gathered together. Loving each other. Showing up for each other. Being family. And as long as we kept gathering, kept loving, kept showing up, she would never truly be gone. She would live on in every meal we shared, every story we told, every hug we gave, every tear we wiped away, every laugh we shared. She would live on in the way we loved our children, teaching them to be kind and generous and brave. In the way we forgave each other, letting go of grudges and choosing love over pride. In the way we celebrated together, marking the milestones and the ordinary days with equal joy. She would live on in me, in the way I opened my home and my heart, in the way I gathered people together, in the way I loved without reservation. In the way I had learned to come home, not just to a place, but to myself, to my truth, to what really mattered. And one day, when I was old and my children were grown and they gathered around my table with their children and their children's children, I would tell them this story. The story of the Christmas that changed everything. The story of coming home. I would tell them about their great-great-grandmother, about her strength and wisdom and love. I would tell them about the night I stood at the gate, afraid and alone, and found the courage to walk up that path. I would tell them about the warmth and acceptance I found inside, about the healing that happened around that table, about the love that saved me. And I would tell them what she told me. That life is short. That love is what matters. That family is the greatest gift. That home is not a place but a feeling. That we must show up for each other, be present, be kind, be grateful. I would tell them that no matter how far they wander, no matter how lost they feel, they can always come home. That the door will always be open. That love will always be waiting. That they will always belong. And I would hope that they would carry this knowledge with them, that it would comfort them in hard times, that it would guide them when they felt lost, that it would remind them of who they are and where they come from and what really matters. Because this is what family does. It passes on not just genes and names and physical traits, but values and stories and love. It creates a legacy that outlives any individual life, that continues through generations, that grows and changes but never dies. And this is what that Christmas dinner gave me. Not just a meal or a celebration or a pleasant evening. It gave me a legacy. It gave me a foundation. It gave me a home to return to, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. It gave me the knowledge that I am loved, not for what I do or what I achieve, but simply for who I am. That I belong. That I matter. That I am part of something bigger than myself, something that will continue long after I'm gone. It gave me the courage to love, to be vulnerable, to open my heart. It gave me the wisdom to know what matters and what doesn't. It gave me the strength to show up, to be present, to choose love over fear. And most of all, it gave me this. The ability to create the same magic for others. To open my door and my heart. To welcome people home. To create a space where people feel safe and loved and accepted. To build a family, not just through blood but through choice and commitment and love. This is why that Christmas dinner made us laugh and cry and love more. Because it reminded us of what we had forgotten. That we need each other. That we are stronger together than apart. That love is not a finite resource but an infinite one, growing larger the more we give it away. It reminded us that the best gifts cannot be wrapped or bought. They are given freely, from the heart. The gift of presence. The gift of acceptance. The gift of belonging. The gift of love. It reminded us that home is not about the building or the location. It's about the people. It's about the feeling you get when you walk through the door and you know, deep in your bones, that you are exactly where you belong. It reminded us that Christmas is not about the decorations or the presents or even the food, as wonderful as all those things are. It's about this. Gathering together. Sharing our lives. Loving each other. Being family. And it reminded us that every day is a chance to come home. To ourselves. To each other. To what really matters. To love. So now, years later, when people ask me about that Christmas, about why it was so special, about why it changed everything, I tell them this story. I tell them about being lost and finding my way home. About being afraid and finding courage. About being alone and finding family. About being broken and finding healing. I tell them about my grandmother, about her wisdom and strength and endless capacity for love. About how she kept the door open, kept the light on, kept believing that I would come home. About how she welcomed me back without judgment, without conditions, with nothing but love. I tell them about the dinner, about the food and the laughter and the tears. About the stories we shared and the memories we made. About the feeling of belonging, of being seen and known and loved exactly as I was. I tell them about the years that followed, about the healing and growth and transformation. About meeting David and having children and building a life. About taking care of my grandmother in her final years and learning from her until the very end. About keeping my promise to her, to gather the family, to pass on the love, to keep the traditions alive. And I tell them about the legacy, about how that one evening created ripples that continue to spread, touching lives, changing hearts, creating connections. About how the love my grandmother gave me, I now give to others, and they will give to others, on and on, forever. Because this is the truth I learned at Christmas. Love never dies. It transforms and grows and continues. It lives on in the people we touch, the lives we change, the hearts we open. It becomes part of the fabric of the universe, woven into everything, connecting us all. And when we gather together, when we share meals and stories and laughter, when we show up for each other and love each other and choose each other, we are participating in something sacred. We are creating moments that will become memories. We are building legacies that will outlive us. We are making magic. This is why that Christmas dinner made us laugh. Because joy is contagious, because laughter is healing, because happiness shared is happiness multiplied. Because in that moment, surrounded by love, we could let go of our worries and our fears and our burdens and just be. Just enjoy. Just live. This is why that Christmas dinner made us cry. Because sometimes love is so overwhelming, so powerful, so beautiful that tears are the only adequate response. Because we were moved by the depth of connection, by the strength of the bonds between us, by the knowledge that we were part of something bigger than ourselves. This is why that Christmas dinner made us love more. Because love begets love. Because when we are loved well, we learn to love well. Because when we experience acceptance and belonging and grace, we are able to offer those same gifts to others. And this is why I tell this story, year after year, to anyone who will listen. Because I want them to know that it's never too late to come home. That no matter how far you've wandered or how lost you feel, there is always a way back. That love is always waiting, always hoping, always believing. I want them to know that family is not just about blood. It's about choice and commitment and showing up. It's about creating spaces where people feel safe and loved and accepted. It's about building connections that endure through time and distance and difficulty. I want them to know that the greatest gift they can give is their presence. Not presents wrapped in paper and tied with bows, but the gift of being there, being present, being engaged. The gift of listening and caring and loving without reservation. I want them to know that home is not a place they go to, but a feeling they carry with them. A sense of belonging. A knowledge that they are loved. A certainty that they matter. And I want them to know that every day is a chance to create magic. To gather people together. To share a meal. To tell a story. To make a memory. To love and be loved. Because this is what my grandmother taught me. This is what that Christmas dinner showed me. This is what I now know to be true. Life is short and precious and fragile. We don't know how many Christmases we'll have, how many dinners we'll share, how many chances we'll get to tell the people we love that we love them. So we must not waste the time we have. We must not let pride or fear or busyness keep us from what matters. We must show up. We must be present. We must love fiercely and forgive freely and choose connection over isolation. We must gather together, as often as we can, to share our lives and our hearts and our love. We must create traditions that bind us together, that give us something to look forward to, that remind us of who we are and where we come from. We must tell stories that keep our history alive, that honor those who came before us, that teach the next generation what matters. We must open our doors and our hearts. We must welcome people home, whoever they are, wherever they've been, whatever they've done. We must love without conditions, without judgment, without reservation. Because this is what family does. This is what love does. This is what home is. And when we do this, when we live this way, we create something beautiful, something lasting, something that matters. We create a legacy of love that will outlive us, that will continue through generations, that will change the world one heart at a time. This is what that Christmas dinner gave me. Not just a meal or a celebration, but a vision of what life could be. A blueprint for how to live. A foundation on which to build everything else. It gave me the courage to be vulnerable, to admit when I was struggling, to ask for help. It gave me the wisdom to know what matters and what doesn't, to prioritize people over things, relationships over achievements. It gave me the strength to show up, day after day, to do the hard work of loving and being loved. It gave me a family, not just the one I was born into, but the one I chose and the one that chose me. It gave me a home, not just a building but a feeling, a sense of belonging that I carry with me wherever I go. It gave me a purpose, a calling, a mission. To love well. To gather people together. To create spaces where people feel safe and accepted. To pass on the legacy my grandmother gave me, to keep the circle of love going, to make sure that no one who comes to my door ever feels alone or unwanted or unloved. And it gave me hope. Hope that no matter how dark things get, there is always light. Hope that no matter how lost we feel, we can always find our way home. Hope that love is stronger than fear, that connection is more powerful than isolation, that together we can face anything. So when people ask me why that Christmas dinner was so special, why it made us laugh and cry and love more, this is what I tell them. It was special because it reminded us of what we had forgotten. It made us laugh because joy is meant to be shared. It made us cry because love is overwhelming in the best possible way. And it made us love more because that's what happens when we experience true belonging, true acceptance, true grace. It was special because it was real. Real food, real conversation, real emotion, real connection. No pretense, no performance, no trying to be anything other than who we were. Just family, gathered together, loving each other, being home. It was special because it was a turning point, a moment when everything changed. When I stopped running and started healing. When I stopped hiding and started living. When I stopped being afraid and started loving. And it was special because it was the beginning of something beautiful. The beginning of a new chapter in my life. The beginning of a legacy I would pass on to my children and they would pass on to theirs. The beginning of a tradition that would continue long after I was gone. Because that's what the best moments in life do. They don't just exist in isolation. They create ripples. They change us. They set us on new paths. They open doors we didn't know existed. They show us possibilities we never imagined. That Christmas dinner did all of that for me. It changed my trajectory. It healed my wounds. It opened my heart. It showed me what was possible when I let myself be vulnerable, when I accepted love, when I came home. And now, every Christmas, as I stand at the head of the table, surrounded by the people I love, I am reminded of that night. Of the cold air and the luminarias lighting the path. Of my grandmother opening the door with her arms wide. Of the warmth and the food and the laughter and the tears. Of the feeling of finally being home. And I am grateful. So deeply, profoundly grateful. For that moment of courage when I decided to come home. For my grandmother who never gave up on me. For my family who welcomed me back. For the love that saved me and continues to sustain me. And I am determined. Determined to honor the legacy I was given. Determined to pass on the love I received. Determined to create the same magic for others that was created for me. Determined to keep the door open, the light on, the table set, always ready to welcome someone home. Because this is what I learned at Christmas. This is what I know to be true. This is what I want everyone to know. You are loved. You belong. You matter. And no matter how far you've wandered or how lost you feel, you can always come home. The door is open. Love is waiting. You are welcome here. This is the gift of Christmas. Not the presents or the decorations or the food, as wonderful as those things are. The gift is this. The reminder that we are not alone. That we are part of something bigger than ourselves. That we are loved, not for what we do or what we achieve, but simply for who we are. The gift is the chance to gather together, to share our lives, to love each other. The gift is the opportunity to create memories that will last long after the decorations are packed away and the leftovers are eaten. The gift is the knowledge that we belong, that we matter, that we are home. And this gift is available to us, not just at Christmas, but every single day. Every time we choose connection over isolation. Every time we show up for someone we love. Every time we open our door and our heart. Every time we forgive, we listen, we care, we love. Every time we do these things, we are creating Christmas. We are making magic. We are building the kingdom of love, one moment, one meal, one hug, one conversation at a time. This is what that Christmas dinner taught me. This is what my grandmother showed me. This is what I now know to be the truest thing in the world. Love is everything. Love is all that matters. Love is what remains when everything else is gone. Love is what saves us, heals us, transforms us, connects us. Love is home. And so, as I finish telling this story, as I look around at the faces listening, some with tears in their eyes, some with smiles on their lips, I hope they understand. I hope they feel what I felt that Christmas. I hope they know what I now know. That it's never too late to come home. That love is always waiting. That family is the greatest gift. That every moment is precious. That we must not waste the time we have. That we must love fiercely and forgive freely and show up consistently. I hope they go home and hug their families a little tighter. Call the people they've been meaning to call. Forgive the grudges they've been holding. Show up for the people who matter. Create the moments that will become memories. I hope they understand that they have the power to create magic, to change lives, to make a difference. Not through grand gestures or heroic acts, but through simple, everyday choices. The choice to be present. The choice to be kind. The choice to love. Because this is what that Christmas dinner showed me. That ordinary moments can be extraordinary. That simple acts of love can change everything. That showing up is sometimes the bravest thing we can do. And this is why I tell this story, year after year, to anyone who will listen. Because I want them to know. I want them to understand. I want them to feel what I felt, to know what I know, to experience what I experienced. I want them to know that they are not alone in their struggles, their fears, their feelings of being lost. I want them to know that there is always hope, always a way forward, always a path home. I want them to know that they are loved, more than they can imagine, by people who are waiting for them, hoping for them, believing in them. I want them to know that they belong, that they matter, that the world is better because they are in it. I want them to know that one moment of courage can change everything. One decision to show up, to be vulnerable, To accept love can set them on a completely different path. One Christmas dinner can heal wounds, open hearts, transform lives. And I want them to know that they have the power to create that moment for someone else. To be the one who opens the door. To be the one who sets the table. To be the one who says welcome home. To be the one who loves without conditions, without judgment, without reservation. Because this is how love spreads. This is how healing happens. This is how the world changes. One person at a time. One moment at a time. One act of love at a time. This is the legacy my grandmother left me. This is the gift that Christmas dinner gave me. And this is what I now pass on to you. Come home. To yourself. To your people. To what matters. Let yourself be loved. Let yourself belong. Let yourself be home. And then, when you have experienced that love, that belonging, that grace, pass it on. Open your door. Set your table. Welcome people in. Love them well. Show them what home feels like. Because this is what we're here for. Not to accumulate things or achieve status or impress people. We're here to love and be loved. To connect and belong. To create moments that matter. To build legacies that last. We're here to be family to each other. To show up in the hard times and the good times. To celebrate together and grieve together. To hold each other up when we're weak and cheer each other on when we're strong. We're here to create home, not just for ourselves but for others. To be the safe place, the warm welcome, the open arms. To be the light in the darkness, the hope in the despair, the love in the loneliness. This is what that Christmas dinner taught me. This is what I now know to be my purpose, my calling, my mission. To love well. To gather people together. To create home. To pass on the legacy I was given. And this is what I hope for you. That you will find your way home. That you will let yourself be loved. That you will experience the magic of belonging. And that you will then create that magic for others. Because the world needs more of this. More love. More connection. More belonging. More people who are willing to open their doors and their hearts. More families, both blood and chosen, who show up for each other. More homes where people feel safe and accepted and cherished. The world needs more Christmas dinners. More gatherings where people laugh and cry and love more. More moments when we remember what matters. More times when we choose connection over isolation, love over fear, together over alone. And we can create this. Each one of us. In our own homes, with our own families, in our own ways. We can be the ones who gather people together. Who set the table? Who open the door? Who say welcome home? We can be the ones who love without conditions. Who forgive without keeping score. Who show up without being asked. Who care without expecting anything in return. We can be the ones who create the moments that change lives. Who offer the love that heals wounds. Who provide the belonging that transforms hearts. This is what I learned at Christmas. This is what I now know to be true. This is what I want to pass on to you. You have the power to create magic. You have the ability to change lives. You have the capacity to love in ways that matter, that last, that make a difference. So use it. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the right circumstances. Don't wait until you feel ready or worthy or capable. Just start. Start now. Start today. Call someone you've been meaning to call. Forgive someone you've been holding a grudge against. Show up for someone who needs you. Open your door to someone who's lonely. Set your table for someone who's hungry, not just for food but for connection. Love someone who feels unlovable. Welcome someone who feels like they don't belong. Be home for someone who's lost. Because this is how it works. This is how love spreads. This is how the world changes. One person at a time. One act at a time. One moment at a time. And who knows? Maybe your act of love will be the thing that changes someone's life. Maybe your open door will be the thing that saves someone. Maybe your Christmas dinner will be the thing that makes someone laugh and cry and love more. Maybe you will be for someone what my grandmother was for me. The light in the darkness. The hope in the despair. The love that saves. And maybe, years from now, that person will tell their own story. About the time they were lost and found their way home. About the person who welcomed them with open arms. About the love that changed everything. And the circle will continue. The love will spread. The legacy will grow. And the world will be a little bit brighter, a little bit warmer, a little bit more like home. This is what that Christmas dinner gave me. Not just a meal or a celebration, but a vision of what's possible. A blueprint for how to live. A legacy to pass on. And this is what I give to you now. The story. The lesson. The invitation. Come home. Let yourself be loved. And then love others the same way. Create moments that matter. Build connections that last. Make magic. Because this is what we're here for. This is what life is about. This is what makes everything worthwhile. Love. Family. Home. And when you do this, when you live this way, you will find what I found. Joy that overflows. Peace that surpasses understanding. Belonging that heals. Love that transforms. You will find home. Not just a place, but a feeling. Not just a building, but a sense of being exactly where you belong, with exactly who you're meant to be with, doing exactly what you're meant to do. You will find yourself. Your true self. The person you were always meant to be. The person who loves and is loved. The person who belongs. The person who is home. And you will understand, as I now understand, why that Christmas dinner made us laugh and cry and love more. We laughed because we were free. Free from pretense and performance and the need to be anything other than who we were. Free to be silly and joyful and fully alive. Free to enjoy the moment without worrying about the past or the future. We cried because we were moved. Moved by the depth of love we felt and received. Moved by the beauty of connection, of belonging, of being truly seen and known and accepted. Moved by the realization of how precious these moments are, how fleeting, how sacred. We loved more because we were filled. Filled with gratitude and grace and goodness. Filled with the knowledge that we were part of something bigger than ourselves. Filled with love that overflowed, that had to be shared, that multiplied the more we gave it away. And this is what happens when we come home. When we let ourselves be vulnerable. When we accept love. When we belong. We become more fully ourselves. We become more fully alive. We become more fully human. We laugh more freely. We cry more openly. We love more deeply. We connect more authentically. We forgive more readily. We show up more consistently. We create more beauty. We spread more joy. We make more magic. And we become the people we were always meant to be. The people who love well. The people who show up. The people who create home for others. This is the transformation that happens when we experience true belonging. When we are loved without conditions. When we come home. And this is what I want for you. What I hope for you. What I pray for you. That you will find your way home. That you will experience this love. That you will know this belonging. That you will feel this transformation. That you will laugh and cry and love more. That you will become more fully yourself. That you will live more fully alive. That you will create this magic for others. That you will be the open door, the set table, the warm welcome. That you will be home for someone who's lost. And that you will pass on this legacy. That you will tell this story. That you will keep the circle of love going. Because this is how we change the world. Not through grand gestures or heroic acts, but through simple, everyday choices to love well, to show up, to be home. This is how we honor those who came before us. By living the values they taught us. By passing on the love they gave us. By creating the same magic for others that they created for us. This is how we build a better future. By raising children who know they are loved. By creating families, both blood and chosen, who show up for each other. By building communities where everyone belongs. This is how we find meaning and purpose. Not in what we accumulate or achieve, but in how we love, how we connect, how we show up. This is how we live well. By being present. By being grateful. By being love. And this is what that Christmas dinner taught me. This is what my grandmother showed me. This is what I now know to be the truest, most important thing in the world. Love is everything. Love is all that matters. Love is what we're here for. So love well. Love fiercely. Love without reservation. Show up. Be present. Be home. Gather people together. Share your life. Create moments that matter. Laugh freely. Cry openly. Love deeply. Forgive readily. Accept graciously. Give generously. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. Be you. And know that you are loved. You belong. You matter. You are home. This is the gift of Christmas. This is the legacy of love. This is the magic we can all create.